The world is getting more dangerous by the day. Russia and China are now increasing coordination. Iran is under massive pressure. And the United States is warning that military action is still on the table. At the center of all this is one question: could one regional conflict trigger a much bigger global crisis? Today we break down the latest developments and what they could mean for the future of the world. The balance of global power is changing fast. While the war in Ukraine continues into another brutal year, tensions in the Middle East are creating new fears of a larger conflict involving Iran, the United States, Israel, Russia and China. And now, a major meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping is drawing worldwide attention. This is not just another diplomatic visit. This meeting could shape the future of global politics, energy security, and even future wars. The relationship between Russia and China has become one of the strongest political partnerships in the world. Putin has visited China more than 25 times, and he has personally met Xi Jinping over 40 times. That level of contact shows something important. These two leaders trust each other more than ever before. Unlike the tense relationship between China and the United States, the China-Russia partnership is built around shared goals. Both countries want to challenge American influence. Both oppose what they see as Western dominance, and both want a new global system where the US has less control. During this latest visit, Putin arrived with a massive delegation of business and government officials. According to the Kremlin, nearly 40 agreements are expected to be signed. These deals include energy, trade, tourism, education, and long-term economic cooperation. But behind the official smiles and handshakes, there is one issue dominating the talks: energy security. Since the war in Ukraine began, Russia's energy exports to Europe have collapsed. For decades, Europe was one of Russia's biggest customers for natural gas. But sanctions and political tensions changed everything. Now Moscow is desperately searching for new buyers, and China is the most important target. Russia wants China to fully support the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, a giant gas project designed to send huge amounts of Russian gas directly into China. For Putin, this pipeline is extremely important. Russia needs money. The war in Ukraine is expensive. Military production is expensive. Sanctions are hurting the economy. And after years of war, the pressure is growing. But China is being very careful. Since the war in Ukraine began, Russia's energy exports to Europe have collapsed. For decades, Europe was one of Russia's biggest customers for natural gas. But sanctions and political tensions changed everything. Now Moscow is desperately searching for new buyers, and China is the most important target. Russia wants China to fully support the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, a giant gas project designed to send huge amounts of Russian gas directly into China. For Putin, this pipeline is extremely important. Russia needs money. The war in Ukraine is expensive. Military production is expensive. Sanctions are hurting the economy. And after years of war, the pressure is growing. But China is being very careful. Since the war in Ukraine began, Russia's energy exports to Europe have collapsed. For decades, Europe was one of Russia's biggest customers for natural gas. But sanctions and political tensions changed everything. Now Moscow is desperately searching for new buyers. And China is the most important target. Russia wants China to fully support the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, a giant gas project designed to send huge amounts of Russian gas directly into China. For Putin, this pipeline is extremely important. Russia needs money. The war in Ukraine is expensive. Military production is expensive. Sanctions are hurting the economy. And after years of war, the pressure is growing. But China is being very careful. Even though China already buys large amounts of Russian oil and gas, Beijing does not want to become too dependent on Moscow. China prefers to buy energy from many different countries. This gives Beijing more flexibility and more power during negotiations. Reports suggest that China and Russia still disagree over gas prices. And because of that, China has not rushed into approving the new pipeline deal. But recent events in the Middle East may change China's calculations, especially the growing tensions around Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important waterways on Earth. A huge percentage of the world's oil passes through this narrow route every single day. If conflict blocks the strait, global oil prices could explode almost instantly, and that is exactly why China is deeply worried. China imports massive amounts of oil from the Middle East, especially from Iran. Any disruption in the region directly threatens China's economy. Beijing has strongly criticized attempts to restrict shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Chinese officials say that keeping the waterway open is in the interest of the entire world. And while China has strong economic ties with Iran, Beijing has mostly avoided direct military involvement. Instead, China is presenting itself as a calm and stable power pushing for negotiations instead of war. At the same time, the United States is increasing pressure on Tehran. U.S. officials say military action is still possible if Iran refuses to agree to a nuclear deal. This warning is creating fear across the region, because if diplomacy fails, another major military confrontation could begin. According to reports from Washington, there is growing frustration inside the U.S. government. Some American officials believe negotiations are moving too slowly. Others think Iran is simply buying time. And now there are concerns that the White House may eventually support new military strikes, not only against military targets, but possibly against major infrastructure as well. That could include power grids, bridges, and transportation systems. If that happens, the entire Middle East could become unstable very quickly. Meanwhile, another dangerous incident has added fuel to the fire. A South Korean-operated cargo ship called the Namu was recently attacked in the Strait of Hormuz. According to investigators, unidentified flying objects hit the vessel, causing explosions and a fire on board. One crew member was injured. South Korean officials suspect Iran may have been responsible, but Tehran has denied involvement. Investigators are still examining debris from the attack to determine exactly what happened. This incident matters because it shows how fragile the region has become. One attack, one mistake, one misunderstanding could suddenly trigger a much larger military response. As tensions rise, China and Russia are carefully watching every development. During their meeting, Xi Jinping reportedly told Putin that both countries should support each other and help create what he called a more just and reasonable global system. Putin responded by saying that Russia and China are helping maintain global stability. He also reminded the world that Russia remains a reliable energy supplier, despite the chaos in the Middle East. But behind these diplomatic statements lies a deeper reality. The world is slowly dividing into competing power blocks. On one side, the United States and its allies. On the other, China, Russia, and countries that are increasingly frustrated with Western influence. And the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East are accelerating this global shift. Right now, nobody knows exactly what will happen next. Diplomatic talks are still continuing. Back-channel negotiations are still happening. But tensions remain extremely high. If Iran and the United States fail to reach an agreement, if another ship is attacked, if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, or if Israel and Iran clash again, the consequences could spread far beyond the Middle East. Oil prices could skyrocket, global markets could panic, military alliances could activate, and millions of ordinary people around the world would feel the impact. That is why leaders everywhere are watching these events so closely. The world is entering a very dangerous period. Russia and China are strengthening their partnership. The United States is increasing pressure on Iran, and tensions in the Middle East continue to grow. What happens next could shape global politics for years to come. But now we want to hear from you. Do you think diplomacy will succeed? Or are we moving toward a much bigger global conflict? Write your opinion in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more war updates, global conflict analysis, and geopolitical stories from around the world. Thanks for watching, and stay informed, EE.